Hey, welcome back. This is my second review for the Filip Smartwatch. As you can see, I now have the first and second generation smartwatch available. My daughter has been wearing it for about a week and a half now, and wanted to get some real-world use before I did this review. In this video, I have done a software review as well as a hardware review, close-up of both that I don't believe I did not have the first time around. I think you'll like the close-up review of the software and the hardware. It'll give you a better idea of what to expect if you do decide to purchase this item. My overall assessment of the second generation I will save for the end. That way you have an idea of what the changes are from then to now, so you can understand why I have the opinion I do, as well as I've got some comments on the overall business strategy for Filip as to how they do customer support. Let's save that for the end, but at this point I'll go ahead and move forward to the software review, and then after that the hardware review, and then the final review. Thank you. Alright, let's go ahead and load the app. As you can see, it boots up into a refreshed Filip app. It looks pretty nice, actually. I find the refresh is pretty good on it. The GPS signal seems to overlay with the map pretty well. I'll quickly go through some of the features of this for those who may not be familiar. As you can see, we've got the map, and the green icon here flashing in the middle represents my daughter's Filip. If you have multiple children, there'll be multiple green icons on the map. Now, if I clicked on that icon, it would go straight into our settings and start identifying information on date of birth, gender, hair color, all that relevant information. For security purposes, I will not be going to that. On the top right, you see a clock. That basically will show you the notifications for all the devices on your account. I only have one, but let's say I click on it right now. You see this is the message center, and this pulls up all of our information. If I had multiple ones, they would all be here. I don't find myself going into it often, but it's still good to see. You do see get notifications for the battery life. Sometimes right above that 4 hours, you see the text is kind of messed up. I don't know why that does that. Sometimes it does it, sometimes it doesn't. That's a nuisance. It could be fixed with a software issue. I'm not too worried about it. The bottom left, bottom right, basically you can refresh your Filip on the bottom right with the arrow. Then on the bottom left is your GPS, basically repinging to that Filip you're using. Again, I don't use the bottom ones. We'll go into the settings on the top left. You see the three lines. Again, if I clicked on Nadia, it would go to her identifying information. Actually, no, I can go into this one right now. From here, this is her specific Filip. From here, I can text her, call her. Text her with the, you can see the normal icon, call with the middle, and the right is the map. Click on any of those to go straight to those. You can see the notifications on the bottom that's specifically associated with her Filip. This is where you get a breakdown on each one. On the top right of the screen, you see a contact. That contact, again, is what I was talking about. It goes into identifying information, basically. Think of medical. Anything that a doctor could use or a police officer to locate your child. For security purposes, I'm obviously not going to go into that. On the top left is, go back to the settings, and we have our safe zones. But before we go into that, let's go to settings real quick. Again, you see Nadia. Again, that goes to identifying information. You can change the app settings for being notified when the Filip enters or exits the safe zone, which I'll get into later, or when the device loses a connection or has a low battery. Those are very helpful, and I would not recommend turning any of that off. The only way you need to turn off exits and entries is if you didn't care about fences, the geolocations. If you didn't care about them, why even bother setting them up? Then you won't worry about getting notified. Next, you see Edit My Profile. I'm not going to click on that, but basically that's my profile as the admin for the account. So if I pull on that, you'll see all my identifying information. Just take my word for it. It's how to contact me, all that information. And on the bottom, you'll see contacts. From here, this is where you can add people. And again, I'm not going to go into that, but it basically can list up to, I think it's 5 or 7 people that that Filip app can call. So from here, I can specify which accounts my daughter can call and who can call my daughter. So right now it's me, my wife, and grandparents. If anyone else tries to call, the line automatically gets disconnected by them. and it doesn't even reach my daughter, which is a really wonderful feature. As for who my daughter can call, again, she can only call these names. They populate relatively immediately on her phone, maybe a 30-second delay. So if I changed it here, her phone would know relatively instantly. We have support, and I'll talk about that later, logging out, which we're not going to need to worry to. And now we're going to safe zones, which is the last part of this. I have two geo safe zones, as they call them. These are geofences that are set up. My daughter's daycare and the school. Basically, again, this puts a circle around the safe areas that notifies me when she enters and exits the area. And I'll show you how to create one so you have an idea of what we're talking about. If I click on the plus symbol on the top right, it's going to show a map. Basically, let's just assume I'm going to pick up some random area here. Here we go, Clarksville or whatever. I'm not familiar with this area. And let's just keep on zooming in. Now, let's say we're down here in this area, and let's assume my daughter's daycare is right here, somewhere on College Street. And let's hold my finger here. As you can see, it puts a geofence on it. I can raise it, get it bigger or smaller. And what that basically does is you want to get it just the right size of the area of where you expect your child to be at during that period. You don't want to get notifications every time they go in and out, so maybe a little bigger just in case, but you can specify the address. You can actually type in the address if you want to get it more specific or a zone. Once you get this done, on the bottom you'll have every name of every Filip on the account, and you can turn them on and off if you just want those specific ones to ping that area, and you have an override switch in the very bottom that says enabled. If I hit save up here, which I'll go ahead and do that. Let's see here, valid. The safe zone must have a name. If I hit save, it would put it down here for number 3, and we're just not going to do that. But and from here, you can actually edit these safe zones if you want to. If you wanted to. For example, this is a daycare area. I can turn it on and off. I can raise the size, make it smaller. But it's a pretty good. Outside of this, we'll phase into the next part of this review. But overall, I would say the app itself has actually been a nice improvement, and I would say this is it's functional, minor bugs. I don't have much of a complaint on this, and I think it's only going to get better. App's good. I wanted to add one more thing that I failed to disclose in the prior video. On the top left, you'll see the 3 lines to go to the settings. We're going to click on that. On the left, you'll see the term settings. We're going to click on that. Before I didn't click on naughty because I said it would go under personal identifying information. I wasn't correct on that one. I wanted to go in and show you what is the most basic, the most important thing here. This is the watch settings. As you can see on the top, you have the automatic updates, 15, 30, 45, 60. I personally set it to 45 minutes. I've had it at 15, I've had it at 30, but for me, to make that phone last normal times, which is maybe 1 to 2 calls between, say, 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. with 2 geofences, I feel that 45 minutes is more appropriate. Otherwise, I find that the battery will be dead. Doing 45 minutes, the Filip will come back with about 10% battery by 7 o'clock or so. You can see that I've got it also turned on for daytime mode only. It doesn't matter much if you're charging it nightly, which is what we're doing. You can make this last longer if you turned off automatic updates. If you turn the automatic updates, this is basically a wonderful phone for a child if you didn't care about geofences. Turned off that. We've got a few days. I think I had 3 or 4 days, if not longer, of battery life. But again, the main purpose of this is automatic updates. So you want that. Turbo mode is really, really nice. Let's say you wanted to set up a geofence that we talked about earlier around the neighbor's house or someone's house. And you wanted to make sure that they were there when they got there, left when they were, or whatever the case may be. Basically, you put a circle around a zone. and when you turn that on, it pings the phone every 3 minutes instead of 15. Basically, it's an automatic update every 3 minutes. That's all it is, but it only lasts for 15 minutes, then it auto turns itself off. I have had no need for that, and you can remotely mute the ringer. Alright, quick hardware review we have here. I'm doing this on my phone, so I apologize about the side and up top. I just want to be able to get close up with a good camera. And my phone did that. Basically what we're looking here is the second generation Philip. It's very similar to the first generation. The only difference is the glass the edge has been fixed. This was a complaint on the first one. As you can see from the first one, it kind of protrude from the plastic. What they did on the second generation is they added a hard rubber from the main area to the top of the glass. This rubber is extremely hard. It's not going to come off. I'd rather have seen a solid piece go all the way up, but that doesn't really change. It's just a cosmetic thing. For the purposes of fixing the issue at hand, it was fixed. On the first generation, they had screws on the front and the back. And what these screws are for is that way if you ever wanted to buy a new Philip, you could just change out the hardware and put it in. For whatever reason, they decided not to do that on this one. On the side, we've got our buttons, just like normal. The second generation obviously looks a little more refined, cleaner printed. This was kind of messy, as if it was sprayed on. I like it. The plastic is soft here on Generation 1 and harder here, at least in my opinion. I'm not. It feels like it's softer here and harder here. On the first generation, this would come off some. Not too much for me to be concerned. I would still thought it was okay, but it definitely needs some improvement. So what they did on Generation 2 was they added this little piece here. And first off, I'll say that I put this on here for this video. I personally hate it. I think it's a wonderful attempt, horribly done. Basically, it's so you can clip it on and take it off. But the problem is the plastic here, for using it, basically you squeeze these two buttons in, and you have to squeeze them in, which will release the inner part here. See if we can get that in. And that would clip onto here. The problem is that is so hard to pinch that I have trouble. I don't even know how they would expect a child to do it. So I'm a little disappointed in that. Needless to say, let's see if I can get it back off. My daughter tried that. She didn't like it. It just slides off this to the side. It comes with this piece. Let me put this one back on. Basically, it resembles the first kind of layout. This is what, if I got it right, this is what my daughter has preferred. As you can see, it now looks similar. But I find that even though it's similar, this is actually, the Generation 2 is actually staying on better. Additionally, underneath, we do have a change in the battery. You can see on Generation 1, we had a star-shaped battery connector. This is a magnet connector, and on the Generation 2, we have basically a circle-shaped battery connector. This was for, now the charger, which is right here, is the same for Generation 1 and Generation 2. Basically, on Generation 1, you would put it in here, and as you see it sitting in here, and my daughter would all the time leave it here and it wouldn't lock, so I didn't like this. You actually have to, there you go, it would click in place and then it wouldn't move. Well, there's a lot of times the child's just going to throw that on there and think it's charging, and it's not charging. Generation 2, they fixed that, made it a circle, doesn't matter, you just throw it in. It spins, that's no problem. No matter what, it will continue to charge. Mine is not showing at the moment because I don't have the full cord connected, but take my word on it, it charges nicely. Again, this is the charger, and on the other end is a typical USB. See here. Go through a quick display. You've got your, you can call the people that are pre-programmed that I talked about in the app, and you can see the top how many there are, and I think I can't remember, it's 5 or 7. It's on the main side. You can see your battery life and your cell phone signal. I will say that the hardware on this, I don't know if they've changed it or what they've done differently, or maybe if my first one was problemed, but this one actually has, I feel, a little bit better battery life. I don't know if the programming is different, whatever, but it's a little bit better life. But the cell phone signal, much better. I couldn't keep a 1 bar or 2 bars with this one. same locations, the signal just is much better. That was a big one for me. Not only the glass, but the cell phone signal and the battery life. Battery life, it could still be better, but now I feel it's acceptable. The cell phone signal was a must improve, and it just was horrible. Anyways, second generation, much better. If you hold this red button down, the phone will start to cycle through all the contacts and automatically record the surrounding area, as well as send a map to the owner, I believe, the admin, which would be me. And it would keep rotating through all the contacts until someone picks up. In case of an emergency, again, they just hold that. It doesn't dial 911, it just does the contacts. Otherwise, the child would just press this bottom button, and let's say they wanted to call somebody, and she wanted to call me, then she would just press this red button, and then it would call me. However, if she held the red button, again, that would be an emergency call. Other than that, the plastic is actually different. I'm not sure how well you can tell. You can see how this has been it's kind of like thrown together plastic. This is kind of harder. It's kind of rigid. More texture, actually. I don't think rigid was the right word. It's more textured. It actually feels comfortable. It's got a little bit more pliability when you squeeze it, so it's easier. This right here just is not comfortable. It feels too hard. This is very soft and more comfortable on the wrist. My daughter actually loves the feeling of this versus the first generation. Other than that, you can change the display settings. Let's see here if I can remember how to do that. I think, yeah, you can press the top one. If you press the top, you can cycle through different one. That's the default clock. You can see yourself signaled. It's only available on AT&T. This is a different type of clock. Shows you the date, day of the week. If you keep pushing it, it goes through text messages. I happened to send my daughter a text message today saying we weren't going to the gym. And it stays up there indefinitely until the next text message comes in. She can't obviously reply since there's no way to reply, but I found that since my daughter's had it, replies are not necessary. I just basically want to give her the information. If she needs any more, she'd call me or text. Hardware-wise, I would say it's an improvement. I would have loved to see this piece been more functional. I really wanted this, and so did my daughter, but it was an epic fail due to how hard you have to pinch this to disengage the back. Wonderful idea, poorly designed, but that's not a deal breaker for this device. Overall, I would definitely say hardware improvement. Hey, now that we went through the hardware and the software of the second generation Filip, I want to touch back. This device is made for AT&T. It's $10 a month. It's about $100. The child can make calls, can receive calls only from those pre-programmed through the app of the admin that I addressed earlier. You have the smart locator for where your child is, those geofences we talked about. It has the emergency function where it rotates through the contacts, and it does not call 911, but will keep rotating through them until someone picks up, as well as sending emails out on that information. I do love the emergency function. It also does date and time, different types of settings, clocks, and it is water resistant. It's not waterproof. I believe it's rated around a 1 ATM. Basically, water can splash on it. Don't go swimming in it. As long as we're talking about typical splashing from washing your hands or rain, no problem there. I don't see any issue. It's available for the iPhone as well as for the Android. And my overall assessment is this is definitely an improvement from the first generation. Battery life, I still think should be improved, but my main concern was the cell phone signal was kind of poor. I don't know if they switched it or what may have changed. I don't know if my first generation there was a default error problem with the hardware. I don't know, but I know that when I had 1 to 2 bars, sometimes known. The second generation I actually have 4 to 5. It's much better. It works in areas that the first generation didn't work. Also, my first generation failed after a few months, about 6 months, just didn't want to charge. Their customer service was very polite, but they did give me the runaround. I had to take it to one AT&T store to have them evaluate it per Philip. That AT&T store basically looked at me like I was an idiot, said we don't do that here, go to another one across town. So I had to hunt down another AT&T store, try a few things there to see what was wrong with it. They couldn't answer it. They told me to try to charge it with one of their devices. That didn't work. I eventually called Philip. Anyways, it was a long process, and they eventually did reimburse me and get me the second generation. But as nice as they were, it was a little bit you'd pull your hair out over if you had some. But I got it, and I'm happy with the second generation. As I did not recommend the first generation, I think I do recommend the second generation, at least in my opinion. I think this is the first device that is worth it. It stays connected. It is more comfortable for the child to wear. The battery connects better. There's a lot of problems with my daughter trying to connect it and it disconnected, the power not magnetically connecting, so there's no longer an issue there. They've upgraded the texting capability of the second generation. The software was limited to a few characters. You can at least get a sentence in on the new one. I was a little disappointed in the clasp, like I spoke about. I wish the locking mechanism was better. They can definitely improve on that. But even with that as an issue, I still definitely think that now is the time. If you this is no longer a techie toy, I think a parent could definitely be interested in grabbing one of these for their child, and the child would love it. Never had a complaint about how bulky it is. It is a little bit bulky, but no more bulky than, say, some smart fitness trackers that us adults wear. Say, I use a Fitbit. So I think you'll find your child would love it, and I'm happy I have it. She's more inclined to wear it now, and I give them a good thumbs up on this. I still think they have got room for improvement, but I've got no complaints. I hope they come up with another generation and continue to move forward. I think this is a field that is not looked upon much in the tech world, and I'd like to see it. For that point, I've ordered a new fitness tracker myself, and my daughter's already expressed interest in this fitness tracker, which I'm going to let her have and get her a nice little wrist one and compete against my daughter on her steps. So the child market, I think, has got a lot of capability. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave me a message, and I'll be more than happy to give it to you. Not paid by anybody, so this is just one parent's review to another parent. Thank you. Have a good day.